Well, we're joined here today with Kevin Cole, CEO of MidOregon Credit Union. Thank you, Kevin, for joining Andy and I for this live chat on a Thursday morning out on the West Coast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you both.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always good to chat with you. We learn so much. So let's get warmed up before we dive into the meat. We always like to get friendly and know the person we're chatting with. I'm a big wine fanatic, and I know, Kevin, you are as well. So tell us what your favorite wine is, what your favorite region is.
Yeah, I'm partial, Oregon guy, partial to Yamhill Carlton Oregon Pinot Noirs. But I also have an affinity for Bordeaux blends, French style reds. And they're making some really nice ones up in Walla Walla.
Oh,
I didn't know.
To Walla Walla yet?
We're going in a month. Father's Day weekend where Robbie and I are going. But I didn't know I had turned into like the wine story guy. And we were at dinner last night with our people from Visa, and they were like, "Oh, order some wine," because that's one of my jobs is to order the wine. And I go into this whole story about, it's a female winemaker and her husband works for this and she's making this amazing wine and we discover them, and the wine lady comes back and she's like, "Yeah, we're all sold out of that." I was like, okay, I get into a whole other story about another wine, and they're like, "Oh, we're all sold out of that." So
No way.
Just pick something that you like that you have. And so
tell us what you've got. Make it a Pinot from Oregon. I love it.
We ended up drinking Pinot Ash, which was a great choice. But yeah, it was funny. But I didn't realize like I had this story in me that I didn't even really remember until I saw the wine on the menu, and I was like, "Oh, Brook and Bull, I know that. Like, I know the story of that," and it had a whole like story behind it. So
that's beautiful. Stories are so powerful, and then you remember. And the label always makes me remember, jog something in my head, connect the dots. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. I'm hoping to go to France in the fall to do some wine tasting in northern France. So we'll see. We'll see if we make that happen.
Go to Epernay. Robbie was really big on Champagne and Epernay. She went in 2016, I think.
All right, I'm gonna send off some notes to get the recommendation. I'm not gonna go blind. We'll have to make a plan. I need a plan. A little type A in me there. So before we dive into your experience becoming CEO at MidOregon Credit Union, let's set the scene a little bit. So when you first stepped into the role, where was the organization? What did the day-to-day feel like for you? Because I know you worked there before you became the CEO. So what would you observe about the culture being?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was a good performing organization at the time. My predecessor spent 32 years at MidOregon, and his sort of number two trusted person spent about 21 of those years with him. And they had kind of taken the credit union from when it was, very small, 10 employees, and had kind of grown it up to, I think we were probably 70 employees or so at the time. But it was very sort of old school command and control type structure. The decision making kind of went up the organization, and then the decision came back down. So what I observed when I got here is that we had outgrown that type of leadership structure. So the symptoms of that were like we were very slow to make decisions, and sometimes the decisions got sort of convoluted on the way up or on the way down the organization, and we would end up making a decision that wasn't the problem we were trying to solve. And so there was nothing bad that my predecessor had done. It was just the way that the organization has sort of outgrown the culture for making decisions. And so it was one of those things that it worked until it didn't anymore. And so it took me a lot of effort to sort of break that model. And one of the symptoms that I observed is that we had the people in the organization that were talented. They were managers, but they weren't really allowed to manage. So they weren't really allowed to make decisions, and they weren't really responsible for anything. Like they weren't even hiring their own people. And so we had to sort of break a lot of that process and unlock the talent that was already in the organization, just to enable them to be accountable for the results that we were trying to achieve. And their response to it was really amazing. I mean, they were like, "Hallelujah, we can do our job now." And those people were have become, some of those people that we sort of initially unlocked in 2017 have become the top leaders in the organization now. And I've got to enjoy that whole journey with them, and they're awesome. They're just performing at incredibly high level. Very much a key part of the success that MidOregon enjoys is the result of the growth of those people that were sort of unlocked in the organization. The other thing that was really interesting, my other observation, so our organization has a long history, and at that time had been working with the Table Group, with Pat Lencioni's organization for quite a while. And there was all of this talk about, like the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and the bottom of the pyramid is absence of trust. And so for all of this work that had been going on for 10 years, when I really got into unlayering the executive team, there was a massive lack of trust. That even though they had been doing all of this work and everybody was saying all of the right things, they really didn't trust each other at the way they needed to be the top leadership in the organization. And so my predecessor and I worked on that. We had to change some people from that initial team that were here when I got here, and really sort of reset that whole, the bottom of the pyramid before we could really move forward. There just wasn't the level of trust and the level of transparency, and so it was sort of those were the 2 observations that I had. Was like, we had these managers that weren't really allowed to manage, and then we had this sort of underlying trust issue that had to be fixed before we could really move forward.
And how does that trust or lack thereof show up? Was it more in that slow decision making? Nobody provided information. We weren't sharing information or knowledge. What did you observe in the behaviors of folks? What would be some signals that people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, there was a lot of talking about people instead of talking to them. That was the one that really got me. And then a lot of just dissonant behavior. So it would be like, this person puts on this projection of competence and ethical and moral behavior, but when nobody's looking, he sneaks out the back door at 2:00 to leave early, and he sneaks out the back door because he doesn't want anyone to see that he's leaving early. And there's just this kind of like weird.
So we know it's wrong because we're sneaking out the back door.
So there was just these weird behaviors that were, of course, being the new person in the organization, I wanted to build a good working relationship with everybody. And so I got to start kind of fresh with everybody. But then I ended up hearing sort of like the gripes and the grief with each other. And then I was like, wait a minute, this isn't going to work if we're going to all be like this. And so that was the main symptom. And then there was, even for all of the accountability work that was being done at the top of the organization with the Table Group, there wasn't a really strong sense of ownership in the organization. And I think it was partially because my predecessor didn't really trust some of them. And so it was like it was sort of a downward spiral. It was like he didn't trust them to give them the resources to do what needed to be done for the organization. And so they didn't feel like they had the resources to do what they needed to get done for the organization. So we're in this sort of vicious cycle of
two-way trust.
yeah, it's like, well, I can't do what I need to do if you don't trust me enough to give me the money to do it. And so it was, so it just took a little while to sort of unravel that and work to get people working together. But two of the people had to leave the organization before we really made significant breakthroughs.
Yeah, so maybe we could touch on that too, because trust is the foundation. It seems to be something that we hear across the board when working with teams. If we don't have that, we don't have anything. But sometimes we do have to make hard decisions where it's just not going to work out. How did you know when to pull the plug, when to provide people the opportunity to find their next chapter?
Yeah, you know, my predecessor was still the CEO at that point, and so you know, it was sort of, it wasn't necessarily my decision at that point when we had to make those changes, but you know, we had some tough conversations about, hey, the future of the organization, I want it to look like this, and this behavior isn't going to fit in that, you know, so can we move forward and, you know, give this person some other options. One of them was just a behavioral thing. It was a really tough one. She crossed a line that is a line that you can't cross on my executive team, and she had to go.
Yeah.
That was tough because she was a good friend.
That's hard.
Ultimately, she chose the behavior that was on the other side of that line, and that was her choice.
Everybody makes choices.
Yeah. And, you know, Kevin, I think one of the things that I just want to point out here is that takes a lot of courage, right? Because you will see this across the board in various organizations where we know someone is not living the values or is disruptive to the culture, but they're our friend or they execute work really well. And I think that being able to stand up and say, no, we know we are living and dying by our culture. We are going to be successful long-term, be competitive in the marketplace with our culture, and then having to make that decision. That takes a lot of courage. And I think you probably gained so many points with your team too, right? Because they see that when it comes time, you are holding strong to the culture and you'll make the hard decisions if we have to. So I think it builds trust and puts everybody on notice. Like, we need to act and behave in a very particular way, regardless of what your title is or how much revenue you generate or how much people thank you.
Yeah, this has been one of the things with, you know, we did a lot of internal promotions when I put the new team together. And so it was really people in their first sort of top leadership role in an organization, and we had really good scaffolding to support them. But this has been the one thing I would say that has been consistent, a consistent learning experience with those folks is they have somebody, they're a problem, and they work too long to try to save them when they need to go. And what universally happens is when the executive finally has the courage to move that person on from the organization, all of the other employees are like, gosh, thank heavens you did that. What have you been waiting for? She was driving us crazy, you know, or he was driving us crazy. And so I love to see this, like this learning experience that almost each of those people has had at some point along the line of, like, they come back and say, like, yeah, I should have done that a long time ago. And so I think it's just one of those things that leaders have to go through and, you know, and have that experience before you can, it's a big courage moment that you have to experience, that sort of feeling of relief and appreciation when you finally do the right thing.
And I would say that the biggest, or one of the biggest things that I hear from folks is they're high performers. Like people do not let people go who are, doing the job really well, or they don't want to go through all that pain of retraining somebody, and they're performing so well, but it's just their personality. It's like, no, if we're clear about what our behaviors are and what we expect from each other in our values and how we hold each other accountable, then it doesn't have to be this very difficult conversation either, but we need that level of clarity. And I do think some leaders struggle with having that clarity pretty much out of the gate, right? These are our values. This is what we tolerate. This is what we don't. But
and maybe a little bit how we define high performers too, right? Again, it's you executed and we made this revenue, or you're able to project manage these technologies. But
cost?
At what cost? At what cost ultimately? So even defining what a high performer is, I think is critical, and it's just not consistent across the board, I don't think.
Yeah, when I do my new employee orientation, I meet with every new employee and we talk about culture and values and behavior specifically. And one of the behaviors that I talk about with humility is this idea of people who are successful here, they are successful with their teammates, not at the expense of them.
Beautiful.
This idea that, you don't, it's not a zero-sum game where I can be good and the other person can be
it's
less.
not high.
Yeah, and it's a concept that I really like. And we had a situation a few years ago with, she was the top mortgage originator in Deschutes County for a long period of time, really high producer, but just a little bit like a grenade in the department. Everybody was trying to stay out of the blast radius, and that was a really tough one because she liked the organization, but she just couldn't function well with it.
Those are hard things to fix, because I think when we look at how people overfunction, like really overfunction, it usually revolves around just staying out of another person's way, avoiding that person, having all these workarounds so they don't have to interact with that person. Little less about the process stuff. Like, we can fix that. We could do some PI work for that. But it is extremely challenging to build that trust and get people back to a level where
they're like, well, this processor doesn't want to work with her, and it's like, well, there's only a certain number, no, we're not going to create that workaround. Like,
for this person who
figure it out, or somebody's going to have to leave, and that's the hard conversation. But every time we have one of those conversations and make a decision, there's always a sense of relief in the organization, and like, oh man, they finally did something about this problem,
And then that really does impact the bottom line, right? Because people's morale is going down when they have to deal with somebody else, and their lack of trust in leadership for being able to address and do something with that, and all the overfunctioning, right? The waste of conversations, the external processing, and all this other stuff we have to do to work around this person. I mean, if that doesn't impact the bottom line directly, I don't know what would.
Yeah. And I use this phrase frequently in our organization. Talk to people, not about them. And whenever somebody is sort of going down that road, that's how I try to redirect them. It's like, oh, cool. How did your conversation with them go about that? Well, I haven't done that yet. Oh, cool. Well, then it's not the conversation for you and I to have right now until you go talk to Rachel about this problem. It's not for you and I to talk about. But it's hard. It's a hard thing to do because there's a comfort in this, gossipiness and in the leadership chair, there's this sometimes an informational advantage that you have in those conversations. Like, somebody might be going through something personally that I know about, they haven't shared with the rest of the team. And it's not my place to share that. And so it's even harder to sort of redirect them back appropriately. But, I very much want MidOregon to be an organization where people talk to each other, not about them.
Beautiful. Yeah. And you've brought in a lot of external help. You mentioned Pat Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions. How did you know that it was time to bring in some help?
Well, my predecessor left, and the one person he really trusted left. He trusted me, but it took a little bit. And they were leaving, and we had these managers that were really not managers in the organization, talented people. They really kind of knew how everything ran here, and I said to him one day, it's like, hey, you guys are going to leave. I need some people to help me run the organization. Can I do some things to work towards that goal so we can have some of these people ready for these roles when they become available? And he said, well, what do you have in mind? And we were talking a lot. And that's kind of how we stumbled into what I call now our toolkit, which is probably 12 to 15 different leadership development resources that we utilize in a very customized process to help people fill gaps in their skills. And it ranges everything from, a very basic leadership class they offer at Central Oregon Community College all the way up to, I think the other end of the spectrum is I have a couple of people who have been through a CEO Readiness Institute, really getting coaching and training at very top level that's designed to prepare them to be a CEO of a credit union someday. Those are obviously much larger investments in the people, but there's a whole bunch of things in between, and to be able to use that toolkit throughout the organization. And coaching has been a big part of it. We put all of our leaders through a 6 to 9 month coaching cohort. Rachel, you did one with our folks. We've been doing that since 2017 as an organization. Pretty much continuously, we've had a cohort working with one of 3 different coaches we've used in the organization, 4 different coaches we've used in the organization now. And it's incredibly valuable. And the one thing that I hear from most of those employees is, man, I've never had an employer make this kind of an investment in me. This is really amazing. And I'm learning so much, and I'm trying new things. And so to me, it initiated sort of as we need to solve this immediate problem. Like, we need to get some leaders ready to help lead the organization. And what my experience was like, man, I really like this, feels good in the organization. And other people were seeing it happening, and they were saying like, hey, when do I get a coaching engagement? And, when do I get to go do this thing that Robert got to do? And so it kind of, it just kind of gained momentum. And I've continued to this day to be really happy with the results. And I to the coaching part in particular, it took me a while to sort of get here, but like, we expect, athletes and musicians and drama people to perform at super high levels, and they get lots of very high level coaching to be able to do that. But we put people in leadership roles, maybe where they haven't had that experience before, and we expect them to be good at it without any coaching or support. It's really like, when you say it out loud, it sounds like, of course you're not getting it. And so I feel like we've created a process and a system to elevate our leaders really early on in their leadership role, or sometimes even before they're in a formal leadership role, so that they are, we're not
overwhelming them.
They just don't have to go through this.
And succeed.
I think it's kind of disappointing for some of the people, though, like when they get into their first leadership role at MidOregon, it's like, oh, I'm the manager, I've arrived, and I just tell people what to do, and then we immediately disavow them of that misconception.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, like now you actually work for them, and you have
Right.
to,
This
your
is not
job is to
command
help
and
them be
control.
successful, and you have to ask questions. You don't just get to tell them what to do, and like it's like, oh, this isn't what I expected, but okay, that makes sense, And
So do you find that, that kind of brings me to my next question. Do you find consistency in issues or gaps in people's skills when they get to that level? Or is there something about, you're just under 200 people now, correct?
yeah, we're about 175.
So mid-size organization, or is there something that you observe about credit unions specifically that when people step into these management roles, there is a common skill gap? Is that the one that they think I just get to tell people what to do now? I've arrived and that's it, or?
Most of our leaders do a pretty good job of, the people that are getting promoted internally. They've seen it, so they kind of know what to expect. So that's it's not the most common thing. It's one of the things about this, the way that we built it, is it's very person-centric. So one of the cool things about having 15 things on the menu is that we can figure out specifically what Rachel's gap is, or next gap that we want to address is. So there isn't really a pattern that we see a whole lot of. I think one of the things they just learned is this idea of coach the person, not the problem. And so I'm going to be really interested to see how that kind of works out in our organization, because as we've gone through the coaching class, sort of reflecting on some of the challenges that we've had, people-related challenges, that probably would have been a good solution. An earlier intervention would have been to coach the person, not the problem. And so I think that now in retrospect, I would say that's probably the most common thing, that misconception that the leaders have, is that one of their jobs is to solve the problems. But it's not really. It's just
empower the other person who's
to solve the problem.
And solve it for themselves or for the organization.
Yeah, but it's it's a puzzle, and it's like, I think of it like they call it practicing medicine, because you don't ever have all of the answers, and you're rarely 100% about anything. I think it's sort of like practicing leadership development. It's like, well, okay, let's try this. Okay, well, that didn't quite work right. Let's try this and pivot this way a little bit. And I think it's the reality of the pace of change in the world today is that I think it's a constantly evolving thing. So we're always looking for new tools to put in the toolkit, and maybe removing some things that are no longer relevant or working. And I don't think that will stop.
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head, is that this stuff isn't an initiative that has a beginning and an end date. This stuff it requires constant attention and constant work, right? Around how we're going to behave, how we're going to interact with one another. I love that you've just said that, because I think a lot of times people think, okay, we're going to do this for 6 months, and then somehow magically at the end of 6 months, everything is perfect, and it shall be perfect going forward. I think that it's a fallacy. Hey, Ray, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think one of the, you touched a point that is really very common. In fact, in my Vistage, my CEO group, they have a term for this. It's called Vistage Friday. It's when the CEO goes to Vistage on Thursday and he learns about something, and he comes all excited into the organization on Friday and throws a bomb, like, we're going to do this, and everybody holds their breath and just says, okay, well, we can write it out until he gets on to the next thing. But this idea of like, very few of the things that we do, like organizationally, are are off the shelf. We have a process, we call it mid-organizing things, where we customize it. We pull things that we like, things that fit the culture and the feel of the organization. And I think this is the area where people run into like the flavor of the month problem, is that they try to take this system and then they try to put it into their organization without any adaptation, because they think like that's easy and that's fast and this is such a great thing. And but it's actually a lot more work to create traction in something by adapting it to your organization and creating commitments with the leaders on how you're going to implement this and how it's going to have traction. And so like our initiative with Unreasonable Hospitality that we're working on right now, we're already roughly 6 months into working on this, but it's a whole, it's exactly what you talked about. It's not a system. It's more of a philosophy and a way of being. And that's how we're introducing it into the organization and figuring out ways to integrate it into, how we do service, and how we create these special moments for members. But this idea that like it's a thing, or it's not a task. It's a way we are.
Well, and I think that speaks to the culture too, right? Like the way you set your values, the way you set your philosophy. What is our mission? It can't just be the flavor of the day, the latest vocabulary. People need consistency. They need something, that North Star to hold on to. So being able to have, like when we work together, being able to reinforce the language, to reinforce the behaviors that have already been a part of MidOregon. And I think that is the benefit of coaching. It is to the person, right? It is to what they know. It is to that vocabulary and the skills that they already have. So it's not to like reinvent and introduce a new like a new training, a new monologue there. But
and the things that are like that, they rarely have any meaningful traction in an organization. And whereas the things that are this is important, this is why, don't wait for me to change my mind, because like we're going to do this and I'm going to keep
that consistency, right? Again, people need that consistency. And
like our clarity questions that we have, that's part of our table group work in the organization. Like we talk about them, our executives talk about them every week, and our entire staff talks about them every month, and they show up, in our buildings and in our messaging. And so, it's just this idea of continuous reinforcement of a way of being, not a task or a system or a process to be done.
And I feel like that gives people a level of comfort, right? Because then again, they know what's expected of them. We're not changing the marker all the time. It's not, again, this flavor of the day. We're consistent. We keep doing the thing, and we keep talking about it. This is where accountability stems from.
Rachel.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, do you want to read the question from in the chat? Maybe
I do. So thanks for the question. It's mentioned that leadership behavior is the strategy. In my experience, the challenge is often bridging the gap between soft skill investment and hard commercial results. Yep. What are one or two specific tactics that you use to move the conversation from the behavior is a nice to have to behavior as a primary driver for growth? I'm reading that is that our behaviors are the expectation.
And it's connected to the hard dollars. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm reading that.
Yeah. What I would say about that, we set to build this organization from the inside out, meaning that we decided we were going to focus internally on the people and the culture, and trust that people that are well aligned and motivated and engaged, we're going to produce the business results. But I'll give you an example of kind of how this ties together. I talked to credit union people, and we're one of the faster growing credit unions. And if you ask some credit unions, like, what's your strategy for growth? A lot of them, they can't really articulate it to you in a very clear manner. And they might talk about, we do this promotion or we do this type of business line, but they don't have anything that is, comprehensive strategy that's always on and always a part of the organization. So at MidOregon, we run a strategy, we call it MAG, Member Acquisition and Growth. We've been running it consistently since 2017. It's a combination of marketing and behavior and product, and every employee in the organization participates in that strategy. It's not just our marketing people or our branch people. And it gets reinforced in our member-facing teams. Every 7 to 8 weeks, we start a new cycle. And they have a sales process for how we sell checking accounts at MidOregon. And every cycle, every employee is certified, meaning they have to do their sales presentation for their manager. And so it's just one of those things that is constantly reinforced. And if you go to any MidOregon branch and you ask about checking accounts, you have a very, it's a personalized experience, but it is a very structured and consistent experience. And it's proven effective. And so it's one of those things where like MAG is just embedded in the culture here. Everyone knows what's expected, and everyone knows this is how we do this. And that's where I think our leaders are accountable for doing those certifications and for participating in it. And you down to, if I walk into your branch and you're not wearing your name tag with your little ribbon on it, I will ask you, where's your name tag? And why didn't you wear it today? Or do you need a new ribbon? What's the problem?
What's going on?
And it's funny, the people that we work with on this strategy, they laugh when they come to visit us. They love to come to visit us because we're one of their high performers, but they always comment, and it's like, oh man, you're one of the very few places that they go to where all the executives are wearing their name tag when we come in. Most of, like a lot of places, that's someone else's responsibility.
We're exempt from that. We're executives.
So I think that's just an example of how creating that consistency and having something be a part of the culture and it's not a thing we do, it's a way we are. Really, and that translates into very good business results for us when it comes to acquiring checking accounts, which is one of our most important activities. So I think that's one example.
You see the results.
Yeah, I don't have a really good, I haven't invested the time to say, our leadership development work produces an ROI of X. Because we've done it so pervasively through the top of the organization, I think that would be challenging to do. But I look at how the results of the organization in aggregate have changed since we really started doing this work, and it's phenomenal. We're probably 3x as profitable. Overall, we've grown almost 4x as an organization. Revenue is probably 5x at this point. And so, and I don't think that our leadership development work is the only thing. I think it's one of 100 things we've probably done that have produced those different business outcomes. But it's a very important foundational piece, and the philosophy that we've really adopted on this is that if you look at the Gallup data and all the employee engagement data, the number one factor is the effect of your immediate manager on you. And so our goal for our strategy to solve recruitment, retention, engagement, development, motivation is to build better leaders, because the data says that's accounts for 86% of your employee engagement is the impact of your immediate supervisor. So like spending money on the other 14% seems really dumb when the biggest factor is right there hitting, right there in front of our face.
Right. That's what they say. People don't leave jobs, they leave managers.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about behavior, and I think we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, when we talk about behavior, it is connected to everything. It is connected to whether or not people want to show up to work. It is connected to whether people want to innovate while they're at work. Do we want people just showing up and typey every day? Or do we want people showing up with ideas on how they can type better or faster, or, in a way that's going to meet customer expectations? I think and just to close this question, I think that really is the essence of why Rachel and I will often laugh about soft skills, because I know that that's a popular thing to say, but these are business skills. It is as important as your P&L. It's as important as your balance sheet, because guess what? When this part's not working, when you have managers that aren't managing, you have turnover that's happening, the amount of energy, time, and physical money that is spent to just continuously try to fix those things, meaning hiring, firing, shifting people between departments, whatever that is less impactful than if you actually started with the behaviors, fix the behaviors, and then people could actually function in the work. It will be exciting.
I hate that. I hate the term soft skills. I think that it's like the worst description, because those are the hardest.
They're the hardest ones
to use and to teach people to have, there's nothing soft about like a hard conversation with somebody. It's such a funny term.
I'm trying to rebrand that to be like the interpersonal skills. Like I haven't come up with the right one that can catch on as quickly as soft, but they are not the soft skills. They're definitely they are the hardest ones. It's all
no, oops. It's how we've defined it. We just need to redefine them.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that conversation going on right now, right? It's that we cannot actually function. We're seeing it across the spectrum. The businesses that have great engagement, even through tough economic times, through all, chaos, political and otherwise, they are able to sustain. The ones that end up in a lot of trouble are the ones that didn't have this strong sort of foundation already. And so it's easy then for when times get tough, all the cracks get bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell the people in our organization, and I talk to our board about this, is, we're in a very volatile, changing, consolidating business and industry. And so, my goal is to build a team that is so incredibly strong and so connected and so committed that if we have to pivot into a different kind of business because somebody, iPods, credit unions, that's going to be really hard. We better have a really good team that's really committed. And, I worry more about, that part of it as much as the technical skills that are required to run the business that we're in today, because,
and that's stuff you can teach, right? You can train on some of those other skills.
And I think back to, what the organization looked like when it was, less than a third of our current size, and we had 70 people. And if we were that organization today, we would probably be gone. And so this idea that you have to, kind of dramatically reinvent yourself, it's not every decade or every 5 years anymore. It's continuing in a very short period of time. And, you have all these, all the things going on in the world. And it's there's, what I want to feel confident, what makes me sleep well at night is knowing that man, our team is really good and our leaders are in an awesome place and people are really committed and they want to be here. well, if we've got that, man, we can take what the world's going to throw at us and we'll figure it out. Like it may take us a little bit. It may cost
There's
us
bumps.
Yeah, but man, well, if we got that, we'll figure it out. But if you don't have that, and then the world throws you a COVID or something, like look out. You don't. It's just you don't. It almost feels like you don't have a chance.
Yeah, that's why we have that D in our kind model. The dynamic is really, we want people to have organizations that are ready to flex and bend, because I think, to your point, Kevin, it is not 3 years or 5 years. It is, we're really at quarter to quarter, right, of what's happening and what's happening in the world and the impacts and what's happening in our own communities, what's happening in your industries. You have all of these things now that you have to contend with, that you need a group of people who will, first of all, be able to communicate with one another, right? So we can begin to think about how we've bob and weave in these.
We've hired some guys in our software development team here, and they come from more like startups before they came here, and in my conversations with them, they have been like, it was really fun. It was really dynamic, but sometimes it would be like for 3 months, we'd be working on this. And then someone would come in and say like, throw that out. We're going to do this now. And and then they would get laid off, and they would go to the next place, and they would do that for a little while. And then they would get laid off, and they're like, it's not that we don't want to work on things that are dynamic and interesting. It's like, but we need we're looking forward to MidOregon because we won't have the whiplash. And I was like, well, don't be too comfortable, like we're going to throw some stuff at you. It won't be like that,
Align to your strategy, align to your mission, vision, values, and really probably adjusting to what the market is offering. I don't mean the stock market. I mean the general market, right? And it would be silly of you as a leader to be like, well, we just have our one plan and like blinders, we're moving forward, and like the world is on fire around you.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think sometimes it can be a challenge, because you talked about Vistage Fridays, right? Here's the new thing I learned, like we're implementing it tomorrow. But really, that goes back to, how do these things align with our mission, vision, value, and our strategy, where we're trying to go, for whatever the term period of time is.
Yeah. My favorite Vistage Friday was my predecessor. He brought back this thing, and it was the only thing that he and I really, really got into a bad disagreement about. It was this software. It was called Chorus, and its tagline was the CEO's view of the company or something. And it was like this thing where you had to put these goals in each week, and you had to rate them red, green, and yellow, and it all rolled up. And so like the CEO had this but it was a lot of work, and people were like, if you don't have a goal for that week or whatever, you're working on something longer term. People hated it, and Bill loved it. And so I was like, Bill, people really don't like this. I don't think it's we're spending a lot of time on it. It's not very effective. And he would hum and haw, and finally I was like, Bill, this is really important to me. 5 years from now, there's two things, and they're both not going to be here 5 years from now. One is Chorus and one is Kevin. So he's like, oh, okay, we can get rid of it. But it was so
But it does feed into that command and control, right? I need to see the whole picture.
It was so stifling.
It becomes a little micromanaging. Stifling is a good word.
Exactly how people felt, and it was so stifling.
Yeah.
It was just
highlighting the lack of trust.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was bad. So, and of course, when I told people we were getting rid of it, I was the hero, which was amazing.
Yeah. Again, the trust building, right? People share what they're unhappy about, and changes get made. Now, of course, not everything can happen that way, but people want to be heard, want to be seen, want to know that they have impact in their work and their day to day. And so when you get to be the one to make that change, you do get to be the hero and build that trust. That's
in the Unreasonable Hospitality, in the book, they had the thing, and they talked about it when they were here. Canceling the reservation was like the thing that the customers hated. They had to do it. Like people had to prepay for their dinner because, it was like a $400 dinner, and they couldn't have open seats. And so it was no cancellations. and that was the rule, but they had a bunch of things they did to sort of humanize it. It was like they had a wait list, and if they would call the people if you wanted to cancel, and if they found somebody to take your reservation from the wait list, you were off the hook, you know. And it was all geared around, like, they had this thing that they couldn't really compromise on, that their customers loved, but then they challenged their team to figure out all of the ways that they could make it more human. And so I challenged our branch manager team. I said, I want you to find our, you know, cancellation policies, the thing that we have to do that the members don't really like, and then let's figure out how to make it more human. And so they're supposed to come back in the next like 6 weeks with their, like, this is what we found. And I can't wait. And like, they're going to go crazy, because that's the kind of people that they are. They're going to be really, they'll come up with some crazy solutions that will ease the pain of members. But I thought that was such a cool way to think about it, because to your comment, like, you can't always make changes that everybody is going to like. And so, but this idea of, as you can still have that thing, it's sort of like the tough love, you know, like, well, we really need to do this. It's not necessarily the most popular thing, but here's the way that we can make it, you know, that we can still achieve the business objective that we need to achieve, but in a more human way that is, you know, considerate. And Lindsay, the trainer, she told us, you know, at the end of the day, like, the only people who ever got charged for their reservations were the people who just, like, they just didn't show up, they didn't call, they didn't, you know, they just didn't care. And so, like, we had no problem charging them. But if anybody called me and they had any kind of a, you know, a story of why they couldn't make it, we never actually charged them. And so it was, and they never had an empty table, you know, like, that was the other part of it. It was successful with what they did.
Yeah. And they always had a wait list. Well, I think that goes into our why in Be Kind Life. We really feel like when people can explain the why and share the why behind decisions, or why things are the way they are, it really goes a long way. You know, not this thou shalt do because I said so, not that management style, but why are we doing it? Why do I need all the tables filled? Why? What is this regulatory constraint, and why is it in place? Why do we have to do this? And when people see that and connect the dots, they feel better about it, but then they're also able to start to think differently about it, to be able to innovate, to be able to put the customer, the employee in the middle there. You know?
Yeah. Last October, we added a behavior to our clarity questions, and the behavior was, you know, we've humble, hungry, smart, and we added empowered. And it's been really cool. Some people have sort of pushed us on that. They were like, well, you know, what's the definition of that? What do you mean? And so we created a definition of it. And when we do things, that's, you know, it very quickly has become a challenge that was accepted by our leaders. It was, okay, how are we going to live this behavior, and how are we going to do people? But to me, this is the whole, like, ties very much back to having engaged employees that are happy, right? Giving them agency to figure out how to accomplish what they need to accomplish. You know, we've even you know, started looking for ways to take structure out of the organization. Where
I love this. I mean, this is what, yeah, not process for process sake. We don't get paid for pound on all the policies that we have here.
Yeah.
And we actually need this. And what worked 5 years ago doesn't necessarily work today. So,
and when we talk about, you know, like, one of the questions that we'll ask is like, well, do we need this much structure around this, or can we just say, like, we want you to do this, figure this out? And the second option almost always works out way better than a bunch of rules and structure. We're like,
here's the goal. How you get there is cool. Like, whatever you do, that feels
that people know their work.
I was standing in front of our leadership group at the end of this coaching class, and they were asking, it was like, hey, if we're going to do this coaching, can we get rid of this other thing that we do? And I was just kind of off the cuff. I said, oh, well, like, stop doing something. You're speaking my love language. You know? and they laughed great about it. But it, you know, ultimately, like, it made sense. It was like, oh, this totally makes sense. And we'll end up probably getting rid of, you know, 2 things and replacing, or 3 things and replacing it with 1 that will be less structured. But still just as effective.
Yeah. And this empowerment piece, I mean, it feeds all of it, right? People are more committed. They have a voice. They know they can make decisions. They recognize that you trust them in it. And the best ideas come from the folks that are doing the work. So we want to hear from them. We want them to feel empowered. This is great.
Well, that's been probably the coolest part of the unreasonable hospitality work. Like we're doing some really fun and cool, like we're creating some amazing member stories that will be like, Hall of Fame worthy. Like our staff is just, but the best part of it in the book, they talk about the nobility of service and this idea that when you do something like that for another person, it doesn't only make them feel good, it makes the person who is providing that experience good. And that's what I've seen in our staff, and that's what they're sharing with us is like, oh my gosh, like not only is this awesome, is like that that you have just empowered us to do this and that you're letting us spend money to do these things for the members. This is like, this makes my job so much more interesting and challenging. And like, it's just, it has like motivated and engaged people. And, we got a little competitive streak in the organization. And so they're looking to get to the top of the leaderboard on like the coolest thing that they could do for a member.
That's so cool.
And like, what an amazing thing to have as a leader, right? I've got people who are like out there challenging each other to like make a more memorable experience for the member. And we've spent like, it's not very much money to do this. And like, for in the big picture, in the big grand scheme of things, we're not creating $10,000 experiences for people or things that are measured in the $50,
But at the end of the day, people want to feel seen and heard, right. And this allows them to feel seen. It's not about how big, what the dollar value is.
But the impact on the staff has been one of the more surprising things. Like I have, like they're pretty fired up anyway, but I've rarely seen our people get so fired up about something that we've been doing.
A competitive bunch. I like it. So if you were sitting, healthy competition. So if you were sitting across from a president or CEO of a growing organization who's right where you were about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, what would you want them to know?
If they're on the fence about, investing in their leaders, coaching and things like that, what would I want them to know? I think the first thing I would say is look in the mirror and are you happy with your organization and is it everything that you would want it to be? Do your people, do they care enough to help you achieve what you want to achieve? And are you committed to being that next level leader that, because you gotta set the example for all of this stuff, all the stuff that you want to do. But I think
that's huge. So let's not underplay that one, right? Like role modeling is key and you got to walk the talk. So you can't be walking out at 2 when you expect everybody to be there till 4.
Yeah. I don't, I guess one of the other things I would say is I don't see it as a really high risk. It's not a huge investment. You can hire someone like Be Kind Lyfe to do a coaching cohort like we did for, in the low tens of thousands of dollars. You can put 5 or 6 people through it. See if you like it. See what impact it has on your organization. And my belief is that there's not very many organizations that can't benefit from this type of work. I guess if you don't have any employee problems or customer problems and you're hitting all your growth and profitability goals, maybe you don't need it.
Well, that's because we want to do a case study. We want to know why we're doing that.
But I think back to my comment earlier, like most of your problems or challenges that your organization might be facing with employees are at their root cause, their leader problems. And so don't skirt around that issue. Work on the thing that's going to work on the 86% and don't waste your time on the 14, you know. That would be the thing that I would say to people if they were on the fence. And I share this with other leaders. People ask, "Oh, what are you guys doing in MidOregon? You know, why are you having such good outcomes in your business?" And it's like, "Oh, it's not secret. Like we're not doing anything. You know, we haven't figured out some other way to run a credit union that other people haven't. You know, like we don't have the project or the investment, or it's not anything like that. It's a bunch of little things that we do around culture and leadership that ultimately produce the results."
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that's a place to end, because clearly we could speak with you all day, Kevin. But it's a bunch of little things. It's a lot of little things, and you have shared a lot of what's in your toolkit, and clearly paying dividends. So, thank you for joining us. Any final remarks?
No, thank you for having me. This has been really fun. It's always a pleasure to talk about my team and things that we're doing here at MidOregon. I'll put in my own plug. You know, Be Kind was really good to MidOregon. We discovered Rachel because a couple of our managers took one of her classes and said, "You should really meet this person. I think you'd like her." And we kind of co-created a cohort model for MidOregon, and it's something that we've been really happy with. So, don't be afraid to make the call. And also, if you're going to work with somebody like Be Kind Lyfe, don't be afraid to ask for what you want. You know, I don't have to buy the off-the-shelf version. They're pretty creative people. So that would be my advice.
Thank you so much,
Kevin. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. Well, until next time, and we'll hope there'll be a next time. So thank you so much. And thank you for
Sounds
joining
good.
us.
Thanks, ladies.